All right, guys, welcome back to this week's episode of Ricky's Roundtable. I've got two amazing guests. I've got Jonathan from Jomez, and I got legendary disc golfer Nate Doss. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about disc golf media, the early days of disc golf, how it was with cameras popping up for the first time. I know I was there for a little bit of it, for sure. I know, Nate, you were there as well. And then we're also going to talk about your legendary career as well. So I'm excited to chat about both of those. Let's do it. All right, this one's for you, Nate. Before, the kind of cameras and everything got into the game, what was the dynamics of media from a player's perspective? I'm just curious what you've seen as the progression of the sport with that side.
Yeah, first of all, I got to say it's awesome to be here with you, Ricky. I mean, Ricky's Roundtable with Jonathan. I remember when he basically first showed up, and I remember when you first showed up too, so it was a real honor. Appreciate hanging out with you guys. But, I mean, to get to the question, in the early days and even before I was playing, basically a camera was an oddity. It was sort of somebody had, one of the big shoulder cams with the VHS tape in it. They would film it. I mean, I've seen videos of the World Championships from 90, which is the one that Climo won the first time.
Yeah. And
it was very just home video stuff.
Yeah.
And those were the early days. And then right around when I was starting to play, which is like 92, 93, there would always be like one tournament a year that would be filmed, whether it was the Masters Cup or something in Florida. Mm-hmm. Somebody paid some production company to film it, and then 6 months later, a VHS tape would come out. Yeah. Now, we would buy all those VHS tapes, and there would be little order forms in like the magazine, in the Disc Golf magazine, or a couple of local vendors would get videos. And so to fast forward even more, the Worlds was covered pretty much every year. The PDGA would pay an amount and say, we're going to hire a crew, basically. And that crew would come in. Sometimes they wouldn't even know about disc golf. And they would cover it. And then, like I said, 6 months later, usually right around Christmas time, the VHS would come out, man.
Time it.
They would time it out. And I would get them all, and I would watch those VHS tapes over and over and over. In fact, we're sitting in Rock Hill, South Carolina right now, and the one that I watched the most was the finals of the World Championships that were in Charlotte. But the finals were actually at Winthrop University.
That's awesome. Yeah.
They played all around the lake. Hole 1 was actually what is 18, and it didn't play all the way back. It just played up onto the side hill there, and there was a bunch more trees and bushes. Yeah. And I watched that video over and over. It was Barry, I think it was Barry, Ron Russell, Rivers Sherrod, and Ken Climo.
That's
and dude,
awesome.
I mean, again, just to see it was so cool, and it was honestly that's how I learned. Yeah, was just watching those videos over and over and over again.
Your way of kind of studying film, so to say.
Yeah.
Kind of like people go, kids growing up and wanting to get better, you watch YouTube videos, say that version of that. Yeah.
That was my YouTube video.
Exactly.
And people, I don't want to age myself or anything, but I was born in 1985. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But, YouTube was what, 2010 or something?
Yeah, I mean, it was around in the late 2000s. But
yeah, okay.
It really took off right after 2010, I would say. And then people that platform started to get a little bit more notoriety because it used to have to battle with, E-Bombs World and stuff like that because it was just another video site. And then it became the go-to catalog for online videos. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all been a progression. In the early days, it was kind of cool when the newspaper would come out and you would get some pictures and it would be on the cover of the sports section or whatever. But, even tournaments like the USCGC, they've always been at the forefront trying to get people out here and trying to get coverage.
Yeah.
So, we've always been very thankful for it. You think about it now, and I just played a practice round behind, 4 filmed practice rounds? Yeah. There was the Jomez one, there was the West Side.
Probably,
Ezra was out there, and then, of course, the MVP crew.
Yeah.
So, now it's become used to it.
But you kind of, all those days were super early. You had to have been 12, 14 years old when a lot of those videos were coming out. It's not like you were deep in your
No. I mean,
this
is how my career was actually
started. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was what I was able to watch, right? To be able to watch Ken Climo, to be able to watch Barry Schultz or Ron Russell, even earlier players.
Todd.
Yeah. Cam was more when I started playing.
Okay, you'd play with him a lot,
but even then, I mean, I was young. I mean, again, 1985, so I graduated high school in 03. Cam won Worlds in 01.
Yeah.
And there was a DVD for that one, but I played in that one and I watched that final. So Yeah, it just wasn't as prevalent. You couldn't just sit down and have an unlimited library of videos to watch. I had to watch the same ones over and over and over again.
Yeah. Right on. All right.
They're back, and better than ever. The 2025 Discraft Tour Series lineup has arrived featuring the fan favorite Z-Swirl plastic. Swirly, grippy, and built for flight. Z-Swirl was a standout in 2020, and now it's here again for another legendary season. Support your favorite Discraft pros and bag a piece of disc golf history. These limited edition discs won't last long, so grab yours before they're gone. Available now at discraft.com.
All right, Jonathan, this is for you. It's before disc golf media and Jomez, what was your side of the sport and where you fit in?
Yeah, so I started playing probably around like 2007 or something, a couple years after high school. My brother had gotten into disc golf. One of his friends invited him, just like everyone's story is. And first time people look at it and go, what are you talking about disc golf? I don't want to play that. Like that sounds kind of lame or whatever, throwing frisbees around or whatever. And like, what is this basket? But he had moved to Austin. And disc golf has a very like old school, like grassroots, or has like a good system in Austin.
For sure.
So he moved away from our town to there and found it. And then when I would go visit him, he was like, hey, like come play disc golf with me. And then it's the same thing. Like I said, everyone has that story. The first time they play, they're hooked, and that's all they want to do. And they want to buy more discs, and they want to, try to play as many times as basically getting around in every day at that point.
So when did it change from you throwing and playing to kind of starting Jomez? How'd that come together?
So I was playing, and I started getting to where I was confident enough to play tournaments, and never really got above like MA1, but I worked my way up to at least MA1. But I'd also at the same time been going to school for media and kind of learning how to produce more videos and stuff. And I started doing commercials and weddings and school projects and anything I get my hands on. I used to do Pee Wee football games, right? Like just whatever somebody would ask me to do, I had bought the cameras. I was going to put them to work. And at the same time I was playing disc golf, but I never really thought to like combine the two. I was just kind of like, yeah, this is cool. I have a couple cool hobbies.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, when I remember this specifically, when the Grip A series, the L series, the first one came out, the bag, grip equipment, that bag came out and it was like revolutionary. And not to say like Revolution is its own bag, right? But it was revolutionary because it was a backpack style bag. We used to carry the Innova, what were they called? Competition bags with the quad straps, the Phoenix straps
and it's
all
bouncing
that.
off your back.
You were cool if you had the quad shocks though.
And those were like $40 just for the shocks, right?
Yeah.
So that backpack came out, and I was like, this is amazing. Like I want more people to know about this. So it was only like a passion project. All I did was bought one of those bags, filmed a video saying like, this is how cool this bag is. And that was it. I didn't expect anybody to see it. I didn't ask Grip for money or none of that. So I did that video, and I started kind of slowly getting some comments, because before that it was kind of lame stuff that no one would be interested, like a local commercial or something. But this somehow reached an audience of people that were like actually appreciating the work that I was doing. So then, of course, the A series comes out shortly after, and that's a way better improvement on the grip bag, because the L series used to fall over all the time. And the A series, they put the center of gravity over the top, and it was perfect. I mean, no notes really. I still have both of those bags to this day. And so I did another video, and actually I got that wrong. Grip actually reached out to me when the A series was coming out, because they saw that video, and they said, hey, would it be okay if we sent you a bag and you do a video on it? And like, there was no money or nothing, but it was a free bag. And I was like, heck yeah, this is like a $250 bag or whatever. I did the video, same thing. People loved it. I started getting more interest in some, like I said, this was the first time in my life I'd ever produced videos, and people that I didn't actually know and like were clients of mine actually cared to like watch. So that was in like 2011, I think. And at the same time, I kept playing a lot, and I got an invitation in 2012 to my first ever Worlds. And 2012 was here in Charlotte. And it was the last Pro-Am Worlds that we've had. And it's kind of crazy. That's the last time it's happened. So when you're there, I'm there as an amateur. I'm just playing, but I also have my camera. So as soon as I would get done with my rounds and I'd play terrible, I'd shoot like a, 900 rate around. And I'd find, because Charlotte is massive.
Yeah.
If anyone knows, there's so many courses. Even in 2012, there's way more now. But
For sure.
I would have to go, and there wasn't UDisc or anything like that. I would just have to go to the course, the website or something on the courses and see where the pros were playing that day.
Yeah.
And I would drive my rental car, and I'd go wherever they were, and I would get my camera out, and I would film as much as I could of a round. There was no intention. There was like, I'm going to do round coverage.
Right.
This was just, I'm going to film the pros. Just kind of like how Nate was saying, there'd just be a random person sometimes. You never knew if you were going to see that footage. This wasn't like, this will be out on DVD or VHS or next week or whatever. So I started doing that, and it got to the final round, and it was the final 9, because back when we used to do final 9s after 7 rounds and a final 9 or something.
Yeah.
And I showed up at Hornets Nest, and I didn't have a media pass or nothing, but I just remember the sheer amount of people at that course is the most people I'd ever seen in my life showing up for disc golf. The streets around that park were lined down the fairways, and it was Will Schustrick, it was Michael Johansson,
MJ,
Paul Macbeth, and it was you.
I think I might have been on that card. Yeah,
you were. In fact, I remember one of the putts.
Yeah.
It's burned into my memory. One of these nasty putts on the second hole or something up against that little hill.
Yeah.
And it was your little brother caddying for you. Barely big enough. Yeah, barely big enough to hold the bag.
It was
yeah,
like a mint green grip bag.
Yeah,
that was funny.
So anyway, I filmed that whole video, and I had no press pass. There was one other camera crew there. It was the PDJ's camera crew, but I'm not sure what happened. But that footage never saw the light of day. Well, it just so happened that 2 weeks later, I was like, hey, I'm going to throw this footage together and put it on the internet. No one even knew. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know who Paul Macbeth was, right? I was just
at
there and I
that
filmed
time,
him. I knew who Will Schustrick was because at that time he was like the top rated player.
USCGC.
And he won the USCGC
and
already.
He was one of the reasons I even got interested in pro disc golf was because of his notoriety at the time. And so I was really there to film him, kind of like, I hope Will wins or whatever. Well, then Paul wins and starts this whole other trajectory in the sport. And I post this video, and I'd never gotten more attention on any video I'd ever done than that video.
That's
and it
awesome.
was like, holy cow, like these people actually really like this.
Yeah.
And I, as a disc golf player and disc golf fan, actually wanted to see more of what I had produced. And that's kind of the reason I did this in the first place, is because I wanted to see more of this product that I enjoyed. And I thought, what better way than to try and do it myself and kind of make something happen. 100%. So that was really like where it all started in 2012 right here in Charlotte.
So the bag, that's pretty interesting story. The grip bag basically is what really kind of sparked it. It's not necessarily disc golf. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I had never done a disc golf video before. I'd never thought to do anything disc golf related video wise until the review of the L series came out, and that's what started. And those videos are probably still online somewhere, and they're probably really embarrassing. Awesome. But that's what started it, is because I liked the product, and I thought, let me try a product review, because even back then people would buy a product and review it. Like,
be honest, is it better than the ones nowadays or no?
Which ones?
Some of the commercials now are just so corny.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call anybody out, but I think we all know. Some of them are just cornier than heck.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I mean, it's funny that you bring up 2012, because not only was 2012 an important year for you, but it was an important year for disc golf in general. 2011... that was the Worlds. That was my last Worlds. That was in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, hometown Worlds.
Yeah, and that one was done in the old school way, where the PDJ hired this guy Derek, who was producing a movie called Chains, which really was never completed. Derek worked hard on it, but things go sideways in life.
Of course.
And they spent a ton of money on that year's video. I mean, we had cameramen from the NFL Network with red cameras out at Pinto, and that footage never saw the light of day.
Wow.
The only footage I saw was Derek gave me a DVD of 5 holes. He had only cut together 5 holes of the final 9. And they never, if you go back in all the years, there's no 2011 Worlds.
Wow.
Fast forward 1 year later, and you're there, and all these people are there, and it's Charlotte, which is like, again, like you said, on one of the epicenters of disc golf, certainly on the East Coast. And Paul Macbeth wins. And it starts this whole new trajectory of the sport where I never had a chance to get as big as him or you or anybody else, because I was left behind, and that's totally fine. That's how it happens. In the YouTube world and social media just went boom.
Yeah.
And you're a part of it, and you're a part of it. Yeah. And I think it's a huge watershed moment. I think also 2019 and 2020 was a huge year as well. But 2012, I mean, disc golf will never be the same. And I think a lot of it is because you saw it, and that was when you started making Worlds finals. And,
and it
goes
just,
from there.
It's just sheer luck in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You have your determination, but that combined with these opportunities and just luck, timing.
And
right?
then you create it. You created it though too. You saw an opportunity, worked hard, and then a few years later, you were taking it to a spot that you thought it should be.
Yeah.
And that's really what life's all about.
Yeah, and think about right after 2012, the patent runs out. Right?
Exactly.
Prodigy comes out.
Yep.
Dynamic Discs goes from having shirts with people's names on Paul McBess in that video in 2012. He has Dynamic Discs on his back.
Yep.
They can all of a sudden make their own disc. Prodigy comes and takes all the players, all the hot players, Latitude.
Yep.
And so much changed right after that, and it was just like a lightning strike.
Yep.
And no one saw it coming, and it was not intentional. It's just that everyone was so excited and buzzing about this, and we just had the right people in place at the right time, and it just went nuts.
It really did.
All right, guys, I've partnered up with JomezPro, and we've come out with some new discs for my Ricky's Roundtable podcast. We've got zones, we got thrashers, we got nukes, and lots more. Be sure to check them out on JomezPro.com. All right, that takes us to the next question, Nate. What moments do you wish were captured on film that maybe weren't? I know because you were kind of like half of your career was kind of on film, I would say. Most of your playing days, and then kind of like half before almost. Would you say that or no?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have to be reminded, but whenever McFly...
Yeah.
Was that right?
Marty
2012?
McFly. Yeah, he was there. He might have even been before me at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I used to watch him, Central Coast, Terry,
Yeah.
Disc Golf Planet.
Yeah.
Because McFly was
Zeusler.
the first guy that showed
Of
up,
course.
and he would just be there, and he would just be there for a non-major, right? Like a
National tour at the
yeah,
time,
like an
yeah.
NT or something in this area. He was like an East,
very
might have been
regional
from
guy.
Carolina.
Might be from
I
here,
think,
yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, from then forward, there was a lot of me taking second place to you and to Paul, and I made a lot of lead cards, and you can
for
see
sure.
a lot of me
Yeah.
playing.
Vermont,
But
remember?
I mean, I think if I had my dream, it would be that we got to see not me. I'll take myself out of it because, of course, you want to be covered no matter what. I go back to the dominant days of Kenny.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe even before that, the Greenwell days and, the days of Harold Duvall and Johnny and Jeff Listman and all these guys that in an era where the basket did not catch at all, they had to figure out a way. And the disc didn't fly that far, and they had to figure out a way. And that's really what I wish was filmed. Totally. I mean, truly.
It's a whole different skill set.
A whole different skill set.
You got to respect it because it's crazy to do that. Like you said, a whole different way of putting, trying to putt your disc to keep it to stay in the basket.
Yep.
Like that's a whole art in itself.
And you think about, we'll just use golf, our closest cousin, because we share a name. That's about it. Maybe the mental side of the game too, but you go back and you watch like videos from the 60s or 70s, and they're hitting wooden-headed drivers, and their irons were heavy as heck. And then you fast forward to what it is now. I wanted to see more of that because you see the progression of it and what they went through, because we can see everything that's going on now. So that's really what I wish. Was there any one individual moment?
A tournament or something, or a shot?
It's so tough to tell, man, because or to pick something, because to me, what we were doing that I was a part of from 2003 all the way until I retired effectively was a part of this counterculture touring lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
Where we were all living together, traveling together, Monday fun day, going to amusement parks, going swimming in the lake, whatever it was. And then we all were like a family, and then Friday would start and we'd all be wanting to, get at each other and beat everybody, and then there was competition. Then Monday, everybody gave it up. So it's hard to pick any one individual moment, but I think if I really had to pick, if I had a magic wand, it would be I want coverage of the early 90s to see what those guys had to go through to get better.
Yeah, see lead cards of all those players and how they manage courses. That would be really fun for sure. All right, Nate, this is for you. How did players kind of perceive people like Jomez and Jonathan coming to the course in the early days of filming disc golf?
That's a great question, actually, because you would think, looking at it now, you'd be like, oh, bring it on. This was the biggest thing ever. I think the big challenge was getting used to them being there, right? Because before, when they weren't there all the time. You know, they were there for Worlds and this and that. And, you know, kind of even then, it was always just the final 9.
Right.
There would be like a random camera guy covering early shots, but final 9, you were covered. And then only 4 people had to deal with it.
Right.
So not everybody had that opportunity. But when the regular cameramen started to show up, it was like, hey, you guys are moving around. Hey, stay still.
Right, you're not in the right spot.
Hey, you're not in the right spot. Hey,
Yeah.
just don't move. It was a lot of that. So I think there was a little bit of hesitation because also nobody had a crystal ball and nobody saw the revenue from YouTube. Nobody
Right.
saw like the eyes that would see the sport and then how big it would get. And then you'd have people playing all over the country in droves versus like I think in the early days in the 90s, certainly a little bit in the 2000s, people just thought, hey, this is grassroots. We're going to build the game because the game's just that good, and we want to be on CBS and NBC and Fox or whatever, ESPN. And these guys started coming around, well, they're not that. This is just something on YouTube.
Right.
And so I think there was a little bit of pushback. And I will say, it probably wasn't until, and I had even done some commentary with you and with Nate Heinold from the Ledgestone, where I came in and we were doing it at Nate's house. Remember that?
It was his office.
It was his office,
The Ledgestone Insurance office.
Yeah, we would go in there and everybody be editing and then we would do the commentary. I mean, that was sort of like the Discraft guys asked me to do. I said, sure, I'll do it. But it wasn't until Sexton of all people, you know, great guy, great players, got his major, his career's been amazing, the Firebird. But really, to me, the big thing was his commitment to show up, to do it the next morning, late that night. I think in the early days, it was always the next morning.
The morning, yeah.
Yeah, and then Germ jumped in, and then eventually Yuli jumped in several years later. But to me, when Sexton started doing it, I was like, dude, you're crazy.
Right.
I'm like, we're focused on the tournament, man. Like, I can't be doing commentary of like, if I was in the group, it always just felt weird.
It's awkward, yeah.
So that morning, I'm about to go play the final round. I'm going to commentate on some. Like,
The previous round, yeah.
Felt mental.
Totally.
So that, but again, it all worked out, you know, and now I can look back on that and be like, man, what a move.
Yeah.
What an awesome move.
To see it.
To see where it is
that
now.
Early. I mean, and I give those guys credit anytime someone gives me a chance, but I always say one of the toughest jobs out here on the road is to be a player commentator. Because like you're saying, these guys still have obligations to their companies, you know, and to their families to earn a certain amount of money by playing and trying to be successful there. But then they've also committed over here.
Yeah.
Literally almost half their day, you know, or the end of their day in whatever, and the time it takes to do, because I know the video might only be an hour, but it doesn't take an hour to record.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a while,
hours.
and these guys are very serious about it. They got to pull up the stats, and they have to be very knowledgeable about the rounds, and to really continue to try to sharpen their skills. And like you said, for Sexton to be like the earliest adopter of that and to see the potential there and not just think like, oh, I'll just do him a favor, whatever. He actually was like, there's something here.
Yeah.
And, you know, to Ian Anderson's credit, he was actually the first one to get Sexton to do the work,
right,
you know, to commentary job. But we came in 2016 Worlds, and we were like the first ones to actually offer money.
Yeah.
And of course, Sexton was like, "Wait a minute, you guys are actually going to pay me to do this?"
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and not to discredit Ian.
Oh,
it was just like, "Hey, let's just try this." But we were like, "No, I think for us to really get to make this a serious thing and like to have potential, I think we do need to find a way to pay these guys for their time." And that's where it all started. And then once we got Nate in, it was like, okay, who else can we get in?
Yeah.
And then there was times we had like Nate and Macbeth.
He would bring in guests.
Yeah, and like obviously Macbeth wasn't like the best at it, but it was just nice to have his perspective, especially if he's on the card.
Right.
That's the thing, like you were saying, it's hard to probably commentate on your own group.
Analysis is
But
weird.
There's
It is,
something
yeah.
there's
You're
something you can do about saying this is what I was thinking in that moment that average players are never going to know. They're not going to know what that pressure feels like, and it may be on your face in some ways when you're watching it, but it's almost like an in the mind kind of thing.
It's cool.
So that was really cool. And like you said, and then Germ comes along and says, you know, I think I invited him because it was at Waco 2017, the first year we had committed to touring full time, and I think I had Eagle and Simon, and I don't know what happened, but I think I was just like, maybe Germ said something, or maybe I just thought of him, and I said, hey, do you want to come and sit in with these guys? And then that was literally all it took. And
Was that the one he won? Was he like the
Yeah.
champion?
Yeah.
So maybe that was maybe what initiated it.
Yeah,
where he was
'cause I
like,
think-
let me come do it.
Yeah,
because I picked him up for round 2 of that tournament, so he hadn't even won yet or nothing, and then he ended up winning, right? Which is kind of crazy. But Germ has been here ever since. That was that long ago.
Yeah.
That was,
almost, almost 10 years, like 9 years ago.
8 years ago, and he hasn't left. And I love the guy for it. He's committed. It shows his commitment.
For sure.
He's taken maybe a handful of tournaments off for one reason or another, but he's been here ever since.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because, like you said, these people see that potential and see that there's something here, and maybe they just enjoy it that much, but they also said, like, hey, like, maybe if I'm not going to be on the top of the leaderboard, I can provide, some kind of insight or provide some kind of value to the sport in another way.
Totally.
And you've done an amazing job of that as well, by sitting in that seat and really helping tell the story of what these players are going through. And nowadays, now you have all the stats at your hand, and there's extra cameras on the courses and stuff.
Right.
So I think you guys are in such a good place because you took the time to sharpen those skills to now it's showtime.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like now you have just about everything you could possibly hope for at your fingertips in the middle of a broadcast to do it. And it's only going to get better, right?
Yeah.
We're only going to get more cameras, and the competition's only going to keep getting more intense. So.
Yeah, and there's unique challenges to covering disc golf because it's quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's much faster than golf. They're not reading greens.
No, yeah.
They're not getting yardage.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're Ricky. I can't tell you how many times. Especially in the early days. I don't think he's as bad about it now.
Yeah.
But we used to film this guy in the early days. And I can't tell you how many times we hit record halfway through his release.
Shot his putt or
Because
something.
he would just step up to a 25-footer and just go. It was like no thought to it.
Yeah.
It was just like, all right, well, I guess we're going to, so we got two opposite ends of the spectrum. We got Gannon, who you could, like take time and change your battery out and clean your lens and whatever, take a drink of water. And Ricky, who you're hauling butt to get over it by the circle to get that putt, because we've missed so many times where that guy would just go up to his line, throw his thing down and go, you know? Or throw his up
Rathbun's
shot.
fast.
Yeah,
Rathbun's the fastest.
He's super
I mean,
fast.
he's so fast.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a quick game.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very quick game, and the guys on instant replay have to be so fast because we do a lot of things in replay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and this is how professional sports are done, especially live ones like this. It's like, oh, hey, we're going to go to hole 6. Well, this is actually in replay. It's not physically live.
Right.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll tell us, hey, we're live and we can go to Brian or whomever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's challenges, man. It's gotten better. Look, the live thing, I never saw it coming.
Right.
I never saw it coming.
Pretty cool.
I did one live tournament with Terry when I hurt my shoulder at the Memorial, and him and I went out there. He was like, hey, dude, just come along with me. We did it. I had fun. But my life, I was moving on. I was opening the brewery.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do anything. And then in that winter, Steve Dodge called. And there was all kinds of things happening with Steve and the Pro Tour.
2019.
Yeah, don't even got to get into it. But that being said, he was like, hey, can you do the live? And we're like, we'll help out. We'll because we love Steve.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
he's and everybody does.
Paved
If
the
you
way,
got if you got to know the guy,
totally.
you'd love him.
Absolutely.
And it's like, yeah, we'll help out. But hey, we need a host. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll have a host. Memorial shows up, man. It's just Val and I.
Yeah.
We got no backdrop. We put a sheet
I
behind
remember
us.
everyone. That
sheet
was
behind us.
a bed sheet or something.
Between the women's and
love
the
it.
men's round, we heard that people were going off on the sheet.
Yeah.
Finding it. It was a Target sheet or something. So we took it down and we
That's
just ended up
funny.
with our wall behind us. And, then it's gotten better from there. And it's so much commitment, the whole media side. I have a completely different view of disc golf now from an entertainment perspective. I always knew as a player I was in the entertainment business, right? Because it's about the fans watching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm a actual in the media, I'm like, yeah, this is the business of
Right.
it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of getting fans out here, getting them watching it, making it watchable, right? So that's how designing courses, how good the equipment is, how perfect the tee pads are. We don't want any controversy. Make it even, make it fair, and then let's watch the show. I actually wanted to throw a question back to you.
Okay, cool.
Now that we have this moment, we've been talking about all this media. How did the media affect you as a young person? Was that a big part of it, or because I know you started at Roscoe, but
yeah, no, I think like you said, early days it was just in 2010, 11 that era. Starting off as an amateur, I was just on the backside of right when kind of Jomez was just getting started, so I had a little bit of access to that kind of stuff. Watching people like you and Avery and Feldberg, and that was kind of my era that I looked up to and was able to kind of learn from, and even in person too. It was kind of I was able to watch YouTube videos, watch in person as I'm every once in a while I'd make lead card and play with you guys and of course just soak it in. But I think that for me it was kind of fast forwarding a little bit, kind of the trends, the progression from there to like actually, being on lead cards, building a brand, and kind of like using social media, using YouTube videos to your advantage to kind of just build your brand on top of being a player. Because like Jonathan said, nowadays being a professional means there's like 4 or 5 different pillars, right? When I first started, even, it was be the best player you can be,
right?
Go out, win tournaments, and you make your sponsors happy, all that stuff. Well, nowadays it's, be one of the best players in the world, do YouTube videos, do podcasts, for some people, do commentary. So there's like, I would say, rather than one now, there's like 4 or 5 to, like, if you want to be one of the best players and have a, good brand and be like, be successful in the sport, you kind of have to do a lot more. It asks you to do a lot. You're kind of pulled in a lot of different directions. You got to find a way to manage that. So it's great in the fact that you're offering a lot for one, yourself. You're able to give a lot of knowledge and that you've accumulated in your career, and that's amazing. And it's that you share that with the disc golfers that will never get to that point.
Right.
And but at the same way, there's like you said, Nate Sexton and Yuli, those guys are, dragged in 4 or 5 different directions, right? As opposed to when they first started, it was probably the same thing. It was just, so that's the biggest thing that I've seen over the years is social media, the YouTubes, and all the different things that brought upon the new age player. That you have to do that. Like Gannon, he does YouTube videos. He's the best player in the world. Still does YouTube videos.
Yeah.
He does vlogs. He does clinical, like how to throw far. Yeah, videos.
How to
throw far.
practice putt or
exactly.
something.
So that's something we never really did. And so it's it takes your mental energy in a different direction, and you got to be able to juggle a lot of different things at once. And that's part of being professional. And that's also part of being able to bring your brand to a sponsor in the game to say, hey, this is what I offer. Not just. Of course, that's still a big part of the equation, right? But, there's a lot of other pillars as well. So that's kind of what I've noticed throughout the progression.
I got to say, like, it's just amazing to hear you talk about that because as we talk about the history of the sport, that is the now problem, right? The access. People want that access behind the scenes.
It's true.
I mean, Val and I did a video. You can go look on YouTube right now. It's called Inside the Ropes or something.
That's cool.
We did 2 years. One year I played terrible, and Val was like, "We got to film this," and I'm like nearly crying. I just was so pissed
because your mental energy starts going into that, and it takes it away from maybe what you're used to.
Yeah,
and
exactly. I wanted to be open and honest. And then the next year I played well, and that was the year Brinster won, and we still did videos and everything. But now that was like I did it once a year here. Now you guys are doing it every week.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the access. People want videos from you, instant reactions, ace videos instantaneously. You doing a podcast, building your brand, So because at the end of the day, your job is to play well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not valuable if you. Arguably, you're not.
Right.
You are
less. Yeah.
As a human being, you're valuable.
Right, yeah. From the professional
priceless,
side. Yeah.
But as an athlete, it's about playing well because people want to hear what the best person has to say.
Exactly. Right.
And so the better you play, the more you have to do. So it's I don't know, man. It's great. I'm really glad you said all that because that's a huge challenge.
It is, yeah, and it's it's just it's popped up, and I think you experienced a little bit of that. I think for us, for you, I can't speak for me, for both of us, but it was more the clinics. I think that was a big thing. Hey, come to town, do the clinic. That was kind of a grind, right?
Yeah.
It was, you love doing it, you love sharing your knowledge, but it kind of was a grind because you maybe just got done practicing, you want to chill, and then you got to be present in front of 50, 100 people and give a clinic and do all that, right? So it kind of drains that mental well. I think I learned that from Brad Hammock. He's like telling me how there's disc golf's like a mental well, and when you drain that well, you got to find ways to Monday Fun Day, refill it on Monday Fun Day, jump in the lake, jump in the ice bath or spot, go get ice cream at the local spot, whatever it is.
Just have fun.
Yeah, and you refill that well, but all these things, drain it, and you were still dealing with it as a professional when you were playing, but it was a little bit in different ways. It's just kind of in different ways now, I think. And
it's funny, again, really great point you brought up there because we're talking about grassroots here, right? So right now, disc golf is still grassroots in a way because we still see, I think everybody at this table sees that growth going. Let's go back to David Greenwell and the guys in the late 80s, early 90s. they're doing clinics. They're driving around just trying to teach, hey, here's a disc.
Right.
Let's go play. Right? Then you get to the 2000s. You got Felberg and Avery and myself and on the men's side, a lot of others as well. Cam Todd, Ron Russell, Barry Schultz, all those guys, Kenny. It's like you look at it, the money. There's money now. Yeah. Some to where I can put some in the bank and live a nice life, buy a house, do things, have a nice car, whatever. That didn't exist for them.
Right.
It didn't. They were doing it for the love. I was doing it for the love. People ask me, dude, like you retired, you bought the brewery with all the money you made in disc golf? No, I didn't.
Yeah, right.
No. I knew at some point, and it was right around 2011, that my career was good. I had won everything I was going to win. Right. Anything from there on was a bonus. But it was like, dude, let's just keep building it. Even if I don't make any money, let's just keep going because I don't want to see this momentum stop.
Yeah.
And
You're
now,
the brewery?
Yeah, no, disc golf.
Okay.
Disc golf.
Yeah.
Like I knew I wasn't going to make any money moving forward. I always said I made enough to live a really fun and great life.
Yeah, for sure.
For that day and for that year and for that month. As soon as I stopped playing, it was all over.
Right.
So that's why I had to have an off ramp, and that's where the brewery came from. But now there's a little bit of money, and I feel like it would be easier to say, look, man, I'm good. Like, I got money. Like, I don't want to be bothered with this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a big up to you guys that you guys are continuing to push that forward to something new. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, cool. It's awesome to see that, like you said, there's always eras, there's always shifts in the sport, and there's always, you kind of were that, like you said, Cam Todd, those guys, you were that era between, you and Avery and,
we bridge
Kenny
the gap.
And bridge the
we
gap.
bridge the gap to you guys.
Everyone will bridge a gap at some point to the different eras, so it's like, it's cool to see, and it's awesome that, everyone's got a little bit different, I'm sure 10 years now, 15 years from now, Gannon will be up here and sharing his, now however long, maybe longer, but whatever.
You never know, man.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, it's awesome to see that, and it's cool. We got all the different eras of, the media side, you bridging the gap, so many gaps being bridged. It's awesome to see. Yeah. All right, Nate, this is for you.
All right.
You've had obviously a lot of amazing moments and a lot of accomplishments in your career. What would you say is one or multiple that kind of define you in your playing career?
Man, there's so many. I mean, it's just such a tough question.
Totally.
Like, because there's been so many tournaments, and I think a lot of it goes down to the big ones, because USDGC World specifically for me, because those are the ones I won. But any of the majors are so tough because it means so much to you. But if I go back and I really look at the big moments, 2005, I was 20 years old. I had never challenged the win. Now, I had taken second place before, but this is the world, man. This is Kenny at his best. Kenny and Barrier in the final group.
For sure.
Final 9. I'm assuming in my mind, Kenny's going to come up with perfect shots.
Right, yeah.
We had Matty O2, which was fun entertainment.
Awesome,
yeah. That was a whole nother. He's wearing a Derek Jeter jersey. And it was fun.
I think that everyone remembers that moment.
Yeah. So, but anyways, in my mind, I'm just like, how is this happening? Like, how is this really going to happen? Even walking up that last fairway, and I had locked it up. Kenny had made some mistakes. Barry was a few shots back, and I played like the 7th and 8th holes. I knew I was up like 2 or 3. I just got to play the last hole for bogey or something. And even walking up to that, I'm just like, is this real? Like, is this even real life? And I tapped it in, and the crowd came rushing in, and it's like, oh my God, my life was never the same.
Yeah.
And it really was never the same, because that moment, that was like, I was young, but I've been playing pro for about 5 years, and it was just like, okay, this was all worth it. I can do it.
Yeah.
It was. Sometimes you prove that you can do it on like an A tier or even a B tier. And I had won a few B tiers, but nothing that was big enough. Now all of a sudden I did it at the biggest, and my game and my life, my career just were never the same, because I had this like immediate boost of confidence. So 05, definitely I would say the biggest, because it was the first.
Is that Highbridge?
No, that was actually in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It wasn't until 2 years later that we had Highbridge.
Okay, I didn't know
had an
that was...
amazing battle with Marcus Karlstrom.
Yeah.
He was way back after like the first half of the tournament, came rushing up, and it came down to the last 2 holes. In fact, he threw OB on the 8th hole. I parked it. I ended up having 2 on a par 3 on the last hole, 2 being 2 up.
2 up, okay.
So that was a good one. And like I said, any tournament win is always a big moment. Fast forward to 2008, and that was here in Rock Hill. Now, I had come close at the USDGC, but the USDGC at that time was starting to get a little bit bigger than the Worlds. Because of what Innova and the whole team here in Rock Hill and all the volunteers had done.
Yeah.
You showed up here, and there was some history to it. Worlds, it was a new town every year.
So it didn't have that as much.
Didn't have it as much. There was still amazing
was,
courses and amazing crew. I'm not taking any of that away from the tournaments. And the PDGA worked their tails off, but the USDGC came back. It was the same course, the same challenge. And at that time, I mean, we're talking Kenny had won 5, Barry had won 3.
Crazy.
I think Felberg had won 1 in 05.
There's such a few amount of people that won.
Yeah, I was the 5th person to win. But really, Kenny and Barry had, we were playing the 10th one. So those 2 guys, I think, just had half.
7 or 8, almost.
Yeah,
Maybe not quite that many, but.
Yeah, because it was 2008, and it was the 10th USDGC.
Okay.
And I think Kenny did win some after me, but I think he had 3 or 4. Those guys had taken up most of them. And, you're playing hole 17, and you're just like, it's the last round. You're like, oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Am I just going to tin cup this? And it gets onto that island, and you just take this huge relief.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a few strokes going up 18.
Totally.
But that was another one where I could not believe it. And so much different because they immediately take you from the green. They rush you into the shack. You're signing discs for all this giant line of people. Yep. And I know you guys are used to that now. It's just a regular thing.
Awesome moment.
But here, it's just like the history of it all. And to know that I was a part of the USDGC history was cool. And then to cap it off, 2011 Worlds in my hometown, I never won the Masters Cup. And it was, I came close.
Yeah.
I was in
you're on lead card every freaking time. Every year it seemed like,
It seemed like it. I wasn't, but it was. I mean, I was on the Raptor Legs final card.
Yeah.
I was on many of Paul's wins.
For sure.
Final card. The Barsby one, the battle where he aced hole 4 with a roller.
That was insane.
Okay, that might be the shot I want on camera.
Yeah. Right,
there we go. I found it. That's the one shot because nobody saw it. Was never filmed.
That is crazy that it's not. I feel like it was because feel like I've seen it. I never have seen it, but I've just heard so many stories that my brain's like, oh yeah, you've seen, like you could almost picture it from everyone talking about it.
Dude, there's stories of like there was a rhinoceros in the fairway and he bounced off it.
Bounced off the foot and bounced. Yeah.
I mean, that would be the one shot. Barsby acing hole 4 at De La that I would wish we had Jomez, Slowmez.
Oh yeah.
It was like a 40-second shot that meandered and then bounced in. So I never won the Masters Cup. And when Worlds was like the year before, Tom Schott came to Avery, Val, and I and said, hey, I want to run Worlds in Santa Cruz. We're like, don't do it. This isn't going to work. The courses are too far away. Right. They're all 27 holes. How's this going to work? And Tom's like, no, we're going to make it happen. This is going to be, we're going to revolutionize, how Tom.
Yeah, he's a big thinker.
Tom.
I do know Tom,
I don't know if you met Tom Schott.
Yeah, I think I met him.
Yeah, Hall of Famer out of Santa Cruz. And anywho, I didn't want it to happen. He was going to do it, so I just thought there's no way I'm winning this thing.
Yeah.
And when I walked up that 18th green or 9th, it was the final 9th still, that time. It was a surreal moment. I could have quit that day and just been like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because that day I had my basketball coach there from high school who I'd had to miss practice for going to play disc golf tournaments. He's like, oh, disc golf. But he was always supportive. My family, my friends, everybody from high school that had never seen me win.
That's so cool.
And I win Worlds and become the world champion there. Yeah. Those are definitely the big moments for me.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, then you probably just look back and it all hits you like, oh, I missed basketball, and you can be like, all right, well, it was worth it. I made it worth it.
Yeah.
That's awesome to experience that for sure.
No doubt.
All right. How did JomezPro come along? How'd you come up with that name?
Oh, yeah. So it really came from my last name is Gomez. My first name's Jonathan. I worked with my brother at a summer camp. I told you he moved to Austin, so I went to go work with him at this summer camp that he was working at, and everyone there called him Gomez. He's my older brother, so they just called him Gomez. So when I get there, they said, well, we can't call you Gomez too, so what should we call you? And then one girl just chimes in, well, let's call him Jomez. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird, but that's fine. And so that whole summer I worked there, and everyone started calling me Jomez, and so it kind of like I kind of warmed up to it. Okay, that sounds fine. So then right after that, I came back home to go back to school, and I started doing more media stuff. I told you I did commercials and all kinds of stuff. I made little business cards, and I had to come up with a name, so I just called it Jomez Productions. And I didn't really think about it. I thought it was a goofy name, but I was like, whatever, I got to call it something. I didn't want to call it some weird name or whatever. I just named it after that nickname. And that was like in 2007. And so I didn't start disc golf until 2012. Wow. So I'd always had that name as just like a little local small time deal, and people knew like that's who I was. That's what they knew me as. So when I started doing like the disc golf stuff and whatever, I just stuck with it.
Was that your name like when you did what you said you did weddings and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like I said, I had little business cards. Yeah, that was it. I had little business cards, and that's what it would be. And if I made a little thing that said produced by it would say Jomez Productions.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. Disc golf was not your first
no,
time.
And that's why I didn't name the company after something disc golf. Yeah, so when I named it that, it wasn't like I tried to think of something disc golf related. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this was something I just carried over because even when I filmed Paul's first world title, this wasn't like this is going to be something big. This was just like I'm doing this for fun. Yeah. And it just so happens that other people enjoy it as well. And then one thing leads to another. 2012 and every year after, we get bigger and bigger. And of course, I'm just going to stick with the name because it's like I'm already this far into it. But that's why we don't have a name that's like, like synonymous with disc golf or has something to do with sports or whatever. It's just a name. It's just something we came up with, and it just took off, and there was no intention. That's the whole thing behind this. None of this was ever meant to be, as big as it was. This was just us like having fun, and I'd already loved playing, and I loved watching disc golf, and I was just like, well, let me try my hand at it, just so there's more of it in the world. Like Nate was saying, there's not as many people showing up to these tournaments, and there could always be more. And this is how the state of media is now, because there's enough of us that are like-minded that love the sport enough to work long hours and not get paid very much and work all night to get it out and whatever, because that's really, we just want other people to be able to enjoy like the sport that we all love.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point for sure, is that, I think a lot of people in disc golf, that's how they start, is passion. Obviously our sport's starting to get a little bit more money, but most people in the sport, media and player-wise, they started on passion. That's what fueled them, not the money.
And think about how many couches you guys slept on,
for sure,
and how many times you had to go to somebody's house to eat or do laundry or whatever, but everyone was so welcoming. I mean, you guys started before I did, and I started in 2017, and it was still that way. We still had people messaging us on Instagram or Facebook saying, hey, I know you guys are coming. Yeah, you have a place to stay. And we had the RV. So we had to have people reaching out and say, hey, I have a place to park the RV. You guys can come in and shower. You can do, all this stuff. Or if you need internet, like, come, I got you a place. And you guys had the same thing. Yeah. You just needed a place to sleep, a floor, couch. Yeah. Rarely, I'm sure, but you get a spare bedroom every now and then, or a place to do laundry or shower. And that's what's gotten all of us so far, is because the passion that we had to go out and like do the grind. But on the flip side of that, if there weren't people welcoming us in all around the country, or even the world in some cases, it wouldn't have worked, I don't think. Because then you run out of money for hotels, right? Yeah, if there wasn't people inviting you in, you probably are done after a month of this, because then you can no longer afford to do what we do. But instead, we were able to get by off the kindness and the welcomingness. I mean, like how people are so welcoming in the community to say, like, come over here. I'm not going to charge you. I want you to come eat with me. I want you to come stay at my house. And that gets you another week, because then you spent $50 that week instead of $50 a night at a hotel.
And you do that long enough, and it's like, all right, now, couple months go by, you start getting some traction, whether it's for us winning a couple tournaments or getting some confidence, or you starting building your name, getting viewers or whatever. That it's different for every in every part of the disc golf, wherever you fit in. But I think back to Nate saying grassroots. I think that's a great word for our sport, because just giving a little bit of insight is that, like, and you've definitely experienced it, is that like whenever a tournament comes into town, people are like, oh yeah, come stay. Whether Pete Cashett comes to mind in Kansas City, and
then, my God, legendary host, man.
And then some other cities it's different people, but like you'll have these areas where you'll be like, all right, come in when the tournament's in my town, you come stay with me, and then whenever it comes into if you're a couple states away, we're gonna stay with you, and then everyone just kind of like pitches in different ways. And I think that's really what's awesome about the sport, is that you can give to them. Give them a place to stay, whether it's your parents' house, your house, whatever it is. Whatever you can give is perfect. I don't care if it's a bathtub, I can put a pillow and a sleeping bag in, right? Like, that's great. We're just thankful for the opportunity, like you said, to not have to spend money when you don't really have that much.
Yeah,
you know?
So much of the growth that we all saw as players in media, and I'm sure tournament directors and anyone that had to go out of their way or leave home to do what they had to do and help sport along is attributed to those people that were welcoming
100%.
to get us there. Because even if it was giving Ricky Wysocki a good night's sleep,
right.
to be able to get him to the next level and the next level, and like you said with us, giving us a place to do our jobs so that we could build just a few more videos to get us that much closer, to reach a few more people, and like we owe so much to those people, and that's what disc golf has always been. I don't care how big it gets. I can still come here to Rock Hill and see people I haven't seen in years and be welcomed and act like that I've known them my whole life, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of think back again to what Nate said, is that there's players that, you know, before our generation that's their whole career was like that, right? They never saw the spike. Of course, they were still great players. They had all the ability in the world. They just didn't have, you know, the sponsors and the money, and so they never had that breakthrough as far as the financial side, right? They just the passion was it. That's what sparked them the entire time. And still, of course, you know, you have a passion for the game still, even if, you know, you're not playing every day. I will always have that. But so they had that, and it's just it's awesome to think back and really put yourself in their shoes to say, hey, they were doing that for years and years and winning world titles doing that, right? Like Kenny and a lot of the other generation, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I would imagine that they probably were still doing that, you know, back in the 90s and early 2000s, you know, all that. But
I think it's a story of, like I said, the grassroots. I think the biggest thing that we as current disc golfers, we have to be thankful. Like this didn't just happen out of a vacuum, right? It didn't just pop here and boom,
right.
We have this tournament, you know, and all this stuff around, and all these people doing all these things, and cameras and people and fans. No, it was built from the hard work of people for generations. Yeah, you know, and that's why I always give the love to the Hall of Famers and the people even that aren't even in the Hall of Fame that just did it back in the day. The people that failed at what they tried, but they tried it anyways.
Right.
You know, Billy Crump wanting to do the videos that he was doing.
Butter on a hot roll. I'll never forget that one.
You know, they failed, but it built for the next generation. You know, Disc Golf Planet TV, they were doing it live with you know, satellite trucks and stuff. It failed, but it built for the next one. And it's like, we give love to the ones that succeeded because that's the ones that's so obvious. But you also have to remember there was so many before you that failed. Yeah. And that to me is just so important to like respect that. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and have that even in the back of your mind, even if you don't have to show it outward, you don't have to go and, you know,
flaunt it,
bow down to, you know, you see David Greenwell, you don't got to go, oh, thank you for everything. Just say hi. You know, at the end of the day, no, he did work to do that. Oh, yeah. And I think that's so important, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I feel from the media side. You know, you mentioned Dusler and Disc Golf Planet. Like, I had a lifetime membership. I used to watch, you know, I used to watch it every chance I got. I remember watching, like, Glass Blown Open specifically and watching a crazy finish there in, I think, 2012. And there was a channel called Nonstop Disc Golf that was
Schustrick and
Schustrick and Kale and Feldberg and Nico traveling around in an RV. Some of the first to probably ever do it. That really went and went out and did it and documented it. Yeah. If it wasn't for James Tennedy, who was the cameraman, I wouldn't have showed up like a week later to Wimberley, where Yeti lives, at the course there for the Am World doubles and all that stuff, and gone and like I just wanted to meet these guys because I was watching them because they were documenting what they were doing. Yeah. And Nonstop Disc Golf didn't last very long. Kind of like you're saying, it didn't have a tremendous amount of success. And Disc Golf Planet didn't last very long, but it set the stage for what live disc golf could build off of when Terry and Johnny came in and did it, and what post-production could look like for when someone like me was inspired to come and want to replicate what they did. And I even remember showing up in 2012 and seeing James, because I had met him, I told you, like at Wimberley a few months earlier, and I was like, hey man, like good to see you again. Where's your camera? And he goes, oh, I'm just caddying for Will. It was the World Championships. He had been filming every tournament before that along the year. Not like coverage, but he would like put it to music and stuff. Yeah, right. And I grew up skateboarding, so I used to watch skate videos. Kinda? No, it was just like I compared it to like skate videos, where it's footage set to music, and it's just a good time. You put it on and you enjoy it for an hour. And that's what his videos were. Yeah. Well, I remember saying, like, I was excited to see him because I was like, oh, I can't wait to see like what your video of Worlds looks like. And he was like, well, actually, I'm actually caddying for Will this time. I'm not even filming.
Wow.
And I was like, you're not filming the World Championships?
Right.
And I think that's what sparked something in my head to go, I love this guy's videos, but he's got a job to do right now.
Right.
And maybe, like, I got my camera, maybe I'll try it. And that's kind of what got me into thinking. Because I honestly think to this day, if James had his camera out there, I wouldn't have wanted to step on his toes. And I would have just let him do his thing. Because every card that I would have filmed had Will Schustrick on it, he would have been filming, because that's what he'd done the rest of the season. He was filming like the lead cards, and it was always going to be like Will or Kale or all of them or whatever. That's just how good they were back then with Dave, and Nico. So I honestly think if he hadn't decided I'm just going to caddy this time, then I would have just stayed back out of respect and just watched.
Wow, interesting.
And like I said, that just goes to show, like, these people that had enough of an inspiration to you, even if they weren't massively successful, they just got that spark going in you. And I've told that story many times with James and Nonstop Disc Golf, how important his work was, even though it only lasted a few months. But that's what got me into that position in 2012 to say, like, I want to give this a shot, because I was inspired by someone else's work.
I mean,
it's really cool.
I got to say, this is sort of an amazing microcosm of even the greater world of greater media, right? Where you had legacy news, now you have podcasts. You had the newspaper, now you got social media, right? And of course, you get into the weeds and all that. But think about it. I mean, when I was young, I just wanted to see disc golf on ESPN. That's it. ESPN, CBS, whatever. That's it. I at this point right now, I don't even care about that.
Right.
Because of what all these people we've been talking about built up, and the failure points of live, and then the rebuilding of live again, and the failing and the rebuilding, and the failing and rebuilding, to where now it's like, again, we're going to go back to that homegrown word. This is all homegrown. All these people that are a part of Jomez and Central Coast and they all play disc golf. They're all disc golfers, and they want to see it survive. And to me, it's like, maybe it was a little bit harder when we got going, but we're getting the payoff now, to where it's like we're doing products by disc golfers for disc golfers, and it just feels less corporate, and it feels so much more disc golf, and if that makes sense.
Yeah,
100%.
And you're totally right. It's so important to have, whether you're building a company and a product, or like from the media perspective, to have people that have that passion to go behind it. Because people used to come to me and ask me, like, hey, how do you figure out, like, who their next camera guy and who's going to be? And I would always tell them, I think it's easier for me to teach a disc golfer how to operate a camera than it is for me to teach, like, a veteran cameraman how a disc flies.
Right.
Because I cannot explain to you how hyzer flip works, or how a turnover shot works, or the difference between Ricky's forehand and Paul's forehand, or how fast he shoots, or whatever. All this stuff that you need to know. Like, I love disc golf. I know who Ricky is. I know who Paul is.
Right.
I know who Gannon is, and I know how, just even from watching. So when it's my turn to hold a camera, I might not know as much about it, but I'm gonna figure out. I think it was always easier for me to train somebody to learn how to operate that camera that already knew where to stand, and how to anticipate whether it was gonna be a forehand or a backhand shot by the look in their eyes when they walked up to the tee shot, because they might just put their hand like this with a disc, and they might go like this, and then they go, okay, I'm gonna go here, or I'm gonna go here. So that was always big for us.
Anticipation.
Exactly. And so that's what I like. To your point about getting disc golfers that were passionate to help build these things. That's why I always looked for someone like that. I wanted someone that loved disc golf and cared about disc golf, and had never held a camera in their life, to be that person that I would train, because that was easier to teach than me teaching you how a disc flies.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The difference in the nuances between different players and how they behave on the tee pad, whether it's timing or anticipating their next move.
All those subtleties are so important to getting a good angle and good flight of the shot. Yeah, you completely miss it if you don't know. If you're trying to film a forehand and you actually switch to backhand, like, there's different things you got to do.
Exactly.
And knowing the course too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that these guys are walking the courses, checking it out, and just knowing what that anticipation is so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, like playing a course, I'm sure filming the course is kind of similar. You know the lines, like you're filming lines, you got to round corners, and you know that's super important, just like throwing.
Yeah, we talk to our cameramen post round a lot of times, because live is just hard, because if you miss an angle, it's gone.
Right.
It's just gone. And so we'll get to a hole and it's a bad angle, and we don't mention anything. We'd go to the catch camera, whatever, and try to catch it. But then after action, it's always like, hey, let's make sure we're on the left because this angle, we're going to get more of that view, and then the catch can catch it. And so it's like it's a nonstop. Nonstop disc golf. But it's just nonstop like adjusting and
it's a lot of these things, like I said, that you can't really teach. You're never going to be able to put that in a manual or a training course. It's like you have to know disc golf and you have to like understand all the little nuances throughout a round. Not whether it's on the tee pad or on the fairway or on the putting green. There's just so much to know. And like we've been so fortunate to find so many people that come out of nowhere and send us a message or an email, or I meet them on the course. I've hired plenty of people by doing that. It's rarely that in fact never that I'm like, let me look at the database or the of LinkedIn of all these camera professionals, right? Like we just happen to have people that actually are both of those things. Like the producer of this show, Jack Dallywater, who's met and filmed more famous people than you would ever imagine, but he also happens to like have that passion for disc golf that he can understand like how to marry those two,
That's
know
cool.
But you have to find those people, and you don't really know when you're going to come across the next one. But that's when you know like you can build a team around people that are like-minded like that, and there's not just like an odd man out that's like, well, I'm like really good at operating a camera, but I don't know half of what you guys are talking about. It's very hard for those people to be successful. I'm sure there's a way that can happen, but for the most part you really would rather have those people, like you said, to know like around a blind corner how to frame the shot so they know how to lead the disc and give it space so they're not whipping around. Or I've seen people in the earlier days where they'd be halfway down the fairway and they don't know that Ricky's going to throw it
over
450 feet, and he's 250 feet down the fairway, and that makes for a terrible shot because then he's whipping across.
He's not a smooth pan.
Or like like our guy Michael Fouché, Follow Flight Mike, like he went many years without ever being hit because he knew how to film. He knew that a lot of times the players were throwing at him because he usually positioned himself in a good spot, because he was usually in an open part of a fairway. He's not hiding in the woods, right? He's right there where a player wants to land, especially on a par 4 or something.
That part helps you.
So
you're like, just throw it right at him.
Michael was so good at learning how to keep a shot in frame and still dodge it and not get hit. Because over time he started to learn, like, maybe I got to back up a little bit more because these players were getting better and better. And now I can't even imagine, because I haven't been on the fairway or filming anything since players were starting to throw consistently 600 feet in the middle of a round. Right? That was more of a distance competition thing. So now things are changing even more. But these players, I mean, these operators are just getting so much better at like learning like how the game is changing, and it's a lot to keep up with because you can't just stay with like, oh, this is how we did it in 2012. Think about how different the Glass Blown Open is in today versus what it was in 2012, and this course out here in Rock Hill. Like I just walked it today, and I hadn't been here probably 3 years, and it was crazy to me how many holes has still changed, right? And so that requires not only for the players to keep up, but like you're saying, that the operators still need to know the course as well. It's just as important for them to know the course, so that they can understand like how to not interfere with the players, because it's always a big deal for us is to not get yelled at by the players, because we had our fair share of those in the early days. I've been yelled at by Kenny. I've been yelled at by Feldberg, because those guys, like we were saying before, they just weren't used to the camera presence.
Exactly.
And my goal was to increase the coverage and the opportunities that we got, but not have a negative effect on the player's experience, because I don't want to be like, I'm going to get this shot. It's an awesome shot, but I'm in your peripheral. I'm going to maybe cause you to second guess this putt and you're going to miss.
Right.
I never wanted that to be the case.
Play.
I wanted there to be a way to do both, to show people at home what was going on and how amazing the sport is, but not at the expense of the players' focus and how well they were going to play.
And that goes a little bit two ways, because I remember, we go back to an earlier question, I wasn't used to them, but then we did get used to them. And then it was like, look, man, you can be right there, and now I have a trust. You ain't going to move.
Exactly.
You're locked in. I barely even see you. It's just like when you play in front of 5 people, and then you play in front of 5,000. It's all the same.
It is.
As long as nobody doesn't move, or make some loud noise when you're throwing, you're good. And so I think that's been a slow build. I mean, I think you could talk to
for
that.
sure. And, I think we've all, it's happened where they're trying to get a good angle and they're rustling around in the bushes, right? And then you're like, oh, that kind of distracts you. But that, that really, doesn't affect me that much. I mean, as long as, like you said, they're trying to get you. And I think eventually you get your under the understanding of like, okay, they're trying to get a good shot. And once you break that, okay, they're really annoying me, and you change your mindset to like, oh, they're actually like, it's helping me. Everybody's helping each other, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the mental side is really, I think, made a huge difference from like, it may have frustrated you last year or 2 years ago, but then you've seen the videos come out. You've seen that. You're like, okay, like I understand why he's there, and it's not
This
as
makes
yeah,
sense.
it makes sense. So that mental side really, I think, that mental perspective really helped the player side. I think just that's really the biggest thing, and of course, like I said, they the yelling at them helped them get into the right spots and know where to be, right? So that not that that's the best way to handle it, but yeah, it's just it's part of the growing pains. Yeah,
you got to deliver this.
You got to
information.
consider the sources, though. These guys, I wouldn't hold it against them, but they just weren't used to it.
Yeah, I know, totally.
I mean, it's kin, right?
Yeah,
and it was right over here at Rock Hill. It was my first year ever at USCGC.
There's
and
lots of people have done it, I'm sure.
I think I stepped on a leaf, right? And he was still looking down at his light. It's not like he was about to throw, but he heard it, right? And he was like, "Are you good? Are you good?"
Yeah.
And I'm scared, dude.
I'm good.
Yeah, and then
awkward silence.
Yeah, and then like
Try
one
not-
time, like we were in Emporia, and like Michael had. His might have been his first tournament filming with me, and it's not like he was doing anything crazy, but he was like trying to just get last second in position, and Feldberg's kind of looking down and looking up, but he can see him, and he's like, "Is that where you're gonna be? Is that where you're gonna be? Are you good there? Are you good there?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Michael's gonna quit." It's like no one wants to be like yelled at in front of everybody,
yeah, it's
right?
so awkward.
Spotlighted
Yeah.
in that way.
So I can only think of those 2 times, and that's all the way back in like 2014 and 15 that we ever got yelled at, and that's why I was like, make it a point to like, do not interfere with these players. But like Ricky said, over time, there is some movement, but it's almost like a dance.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know that as we're moving around the fairway, Ricky's moving down the fairway, our camera guy's moving from behind to the next spot, trying to get ahead of Ricky because he knows where his next disc at. And when we get to the circle, we know like who's out. We're having to look because you guys are saying the same thing. Oh, who are out? Who? And then there's even times where they'll go, okay, Ricky, Paul, Nate, and Gannon, and then we can kind of figure out how to do that. And there's a little bit of a dance that kind of goes, and it's like the more veteran that these players and camera people are, the more likely it is we're never going to get in each other's way because I know that I have this much amount of time to get in position for that shot and not be a distraction, and the putting green is the most sensitive spot, and that's why you want to make sure that once you're in spot, you're there. And guys like Jack and Blake are getting the slow mez angles, so they know that they have to get there ahead of time because this is a 49 footer, but Ricky has a very good chance of making this, so I need to be in position for this.
Right.
Like you have to start to think ahead and know the players and know the situation, and if there's water behind it, you're like, this one probably isn't as important because
they're gonna lay
it's
it
not
up.
worth it. He's gonna lay it up, so I don't need to like put myself in an awkward position or something.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it is the more that we all spend time out here with each other, and even when new people come in, we can all like continue to like have this like fluid dance that we all do amongst each other in order to be the best versions of ourselves. Play your best on the course as an athlete and to present the best camera angles and footage for the fans, and that's what I love about it is that we all coexist so well because it was a little clunky at first. That's what we talked about. You guys weren't used to us being there. We weren't very good at what we were doing because maybe we didn't know the best positions and stuff, and now here we are all these years later, and it's just like clockwork. We can all know exactly where we need to be, where we want to be, and we can all just present the best version of our sport to the world.
I think it goes for the players too, like you said, like that's growing pain for us is like you have to if you're on lead card, you have to expect that the cameras, you gotta wait for them, right? So like you said, me, like that was something I had to learn, like okay, like I can play fast, walk fast, but like at least wait for the camera to get in position, right? Like so that's kind of our version of like rustling around in the bushes for you guys, right? Like, because we're there to play and compete, and of course that's what we want to focus on, but we also at the same time we are understanding that people want to watch us, so you got to give them the chance.
You've developed a lot, so much as a player, and I know Nate's mentioned a couple times, but even in front of like the camera, right? You can go back and some of y'all can dig around for Ricky's older interviews and whatever, and how much different he is now, and now he's running his own podcast, and I'm so proud of him.
It's amazing.
It really is so great to see like. That's another thing, the media presence we talked about. You already kind of mentioned it, but like how you have to be comfortable. If you want to stay on top, if you want to be the best, if you're going to be the best, people are going to want to hear from you.
Right.
Think about your favorite NFL players or your favorite NBA players or MLB. The ones that you like the most are most likely the ones that are always in front of the camera and you see them all the time.
Yeah.
And then they just happen to be also some of the best players.
Right.
And it's so important to like sharpen those skills. So maybe briefly you can talk about that, like when I kind of just dogged on you a little bit for your early days. How was that for you, like in front of a camera, and how learning, like what was that journey like for you from the beginning to like where you are now hosting your podcast? Like where did you get your inspiration from to like kind of be more comfortable in front of the camera?
Yeah, no, I can definitely attribute it to disc golf and just, you know, doing things like this, doing post-round. I think really post-round interviews is where it all changed for me, is because you're just getting done, and I got a story that I want to share that has you involved in it as well, but doing a pro tour event that you just got done, whether you had a hot round or won the tournament, whatever it may be, you maybe still be gathering your thoughts from the round, all the emotions and stuff going on, and you're jumping right into an interview that you maybe don't know what you're going to say, right? So you gotta, like what I like to say, feel comfortable being uncomfortable, right? You're like, you don't know what your thoughts are gonna happen, but you have to try to get them out. And so I think the more that you do that, and you know, put yourself in that uncomfortable spot where you really don't have anything planned and someone asks you a question, you're like stumbling and just repeating yourself and all the different things that happen when you're nervous and in front of a camera, and the more you do that, and the more you kind of get uncomfortable and kind of still find a way to calm your mind and formulate your thoughts and say what you want to say without stumbling as much. Of course, nobody's perfect, but so yeah, just jumping into the deep end with, you know, like I said, you guys, you know, I've done some. I feel like I don't know if have I done post-round commentary for you guys? Maybe 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, there might have been a time. It's
but
hard to remember.
Days.
Yeah.
When you
I know
won
I
a
did
tournament or something.
Yeah, Terry. I've done it with Terry. I know.
Of course, yeah.
But then actually that brings us to my next story is the IDGC tournament. That was the first tournament that I battled with you, and I ended up winning. PDJ Championships, first major, and I was on lead card battle with Nate. He was best player in the world at the time, and that was 2011, I think. Yeah, that you were playing great.
Yeah.
And so I did a post-round interview, and I must have said like 100 times, right?
You did.
I played good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think about that moment just because that was kind of, I was in the deep end, didn't know how to swim, right?
Trial by fire,
exactly.
And just like you just fake it till you make it, basically.
Right.
You know, like it's everyone does that. I mean, I used to take speech classes in
Yeah,
college.
I thought
and
about
they
it
used to
for
make you
sure.
film yourself, and you'd be surprised how many people say and
Yeah.
they have their crutch words.
Yeah.
And like you've done such a good job of, and I'm sure everyone has over time, myself included. We grew up at a time, we're all roughly around the same age.
Yeah.
We grew up at a time when there wasn't cameras in our faces, and
Yeah.
there wasn't cell phones. If you were lucky if someone in your family had a shoulder cam at Christmas, right? So we weren't trained to like know how to behave in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And like you came up at a time where people wanted to ask you questions, like he said, on the fly with a camera that was going to be archived forever.
Yeah.
So you better not say anything stupid,
right,
you know, or otherwise people are going to have to be watching that. So it was like, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, and you learn to think like as you're speaking. And that's a weird thing to say.
It is, but it's
you
true.
have to learn how to like have the next things going in your head as you're speaking. And especially on an hour-long podcast where we're all being asked questions that we don't know what's coming next. Like it's important to like continue to sharpen those skills, and like you've done so well, Nate, over the years. And like Ricky, the same thing on these post-round interviews. I would love to see maybe your first handful of those.
Go to the Terry Miller one.
Yeah, versus like
Yeah.
how they are now. Like you said, you could even dissect it down to like what words did you used to rely on too much, and now your vocabulary, you know, you can be more articulate with the things you say, or you learn how to like even talk like about yourself like in a way when you didn't have the best day.
Yeah.
You might be pissed off in that moment, but you can still have something to provide these people, because it's important for your fans and the people that are following the whole story to like hear from you. They want to hear from you, because if you said no and I'm just going to be the guy that never does interviews, like that would have not been good for your brand. But you learned how to like even be gracious in defeat and something. Because I'm sure there was plenty of times people wanted to talk to you after you lost.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah. Not as much of that much, but I mean, it's definitely something that's really shows true character, right? If you can go up there and just explain how you're feeling, even though you're feeling terrible, right? You can find a way to translate those thoughts to the viewers and just walk them through what went down. And it's tough to do. It's really tough to do, as Nate knows as well. You know, it's way easier to do an interview when you win. Everybody's patting you on the back, but like you said, there's still people out there that want to hear about how did it happen, what were you thinking, all those different things. It's hard to talk about, but it definitely paints the picture in a way that the viewers don't see.
Yeah,
and I think an important additive to this is the person who's interviewing you. Like, seriously, when Terry Miller would come and interview me, I had a trust in him.
Mm-hmm.
I had a trust in him that he wasn't, even if it was a rough interview or something bad happened, which in my case, that was never the case because we didn't have that kind of time to interview the guy who took second.
Yeah.
You know, it's always a winning interview, but I have a trust in this guy. You know, it's like we can talk, we can chat. I think Brian Earhart, Perkins,
So good, yeah.
You know, these guys, you're getting comfortable with them to where when you see them, you know what's happening. You know they're going to be on your side. Even though they might have to ask you a hard question, they're not doing it out of some sort of vindictive,
Right.
I want to get
Like,
this
yeah.
guy. They're doing it because it's their job, and they know it's important, as he just said, for the fans to hear your perspective. So I think that's really critical, too. That was always super, very important for me. And I think really with you, Ricky, I think the big thing I saw in the early days, we have the count and all that.
Right.
And then these are like your award speeches.
Yeah.
You know, you're winning and we're like, oh, how many is that? Oh, well, there's 13 of them. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
to me, it was you were young. And as you started to get older and as you started to gain confidence, now you knew what you were saying people wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I remember being young, I was like, nobody wants to hear
Right.
what I'm
It's
saying. And I don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's, well, like, yeah, so it's like this. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
It's a
totally.
lot of that instead of just ripping it off
Right,
and going, oh, you want to know how my round was? Well,
Here it
how it
goes.
is. You know, 1, I messed up, and then 7, I made a huge spot. Boom. And that's the difference. And I've
Totally.
seen that in you
Yeah.
so much,
Well,
which
cool.
Thank
you.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Of course,
appreciate it, yeah.
We always love, I always love a Ricky interview.
Yeah.
But,
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's, you know, I love you.
Yeah,
That's
I
why.
appreciate that.
I think our thing back in your earlier days that I remember is you would say momentum a lot.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, for sure.
That was his
That's
word.
some
my keywords.
He
Yeah,
relied on
exactly.
it. It went from to momentum.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it was.
Now
a
I've expanded the
precursor.
vocabulary. Tried to at least.
I think another important thing is also not taking yourself overly serious. I think that also helps a lot to where you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you go, dude, I don't want to talk about the years. You're like, dude,
Yeah,
dude,
right.
they exist.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like, okay, it is what it is. Because at the end of the day, we're doing sports.
Yeah.
You know, we're not doing heart surgery.
Yeah.
We're not doing something that's critical for whatever. We're playing sports and we want to have fun with it. And yeah, there's tough times and yeah, there's fun times. But at the end of the day, we're just lucky to be able to do it. So
For sure,
have a
yeah.
smile and have
Right.
a laugh. And I even
True.
love hearing you talk about glass half full aspects of things.
Yeah.
And that is so important for the longevity of a disc golfer. I think Nate Sexton is a perfect example of somebody who's lasted a ton of time in this game.
Totally.
A glass half full guy. He finds what's the positive out of this versus, well, how is this not good for me? Or how is this just suck? And I think you've done a good job at that too.
Well,
Even
thank
with
you.
Lyme disease.
Yeah.
You dealt with that. You made your hard decision to do it the way you wanted to do it. And you're confident in that.
Yeah.
And I think people should respect that. I mean, I
cool.
certainly do.
Well, cool.
So,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Your presence in front of the camera
Yeah.
now, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's
man.
gotten better. I
It's
appreciate
just-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say it was that bad before, but
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
saying
no,
how
yeah.
much you've matured,
Yeah.
like in front of a camera, like it's
thank
it's
you.
wild.
Appreciate
it's
it.
like one of those things like why would anybody want to hear what a disc golfer has to
Yeah.
say? And it is even further removed when that happened to me in the earlier days,
Yeah, yeah, right,
especially
with
when,
camera.
why would somebody
Yeah.
care what the guy that films disc golf has to say? And people would ask me to be on podcasts and stuff. It's like
You're
that's
like, dude,
crazy.
I'm behind the
dude.
camera. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not in
Yeah,
front
I
of it.
didn't
Yeah.
do this to be in front of it. And then
Yeah.
there was a time where I had to speak in front of, a room of 500 people, and it was just like, what? Like this is
Whoa,
yeah. It's wild.
All right, Jonathan. What's your favorite course to film?
My all-time favorite, like there's ones that I could go to consistently. Like I will say I have a two-part answer, but Rock Hill right here, Winthrop, when UC first invited me in 2015.
World Tour? Was it the
That
Disc
was
Golf
the
World
World
Tour?
Tour.
World Tour year,
Yep.
yeah. Yep.
When he invited me to come and film this tournament, it was me and Michael. We were just a two-man crew. We had only done so many tournaments at that time, but we were slowly getting notoriety that someone like UC, who I'd barely known about, but I knew about him, and I had seen what he had been doing with Spin TV, and he invited me to come out here. And it was just like seeing the course with your own eyes for the first time after only seeing it through the lens of Disc Golf Planet or something, I think at the time, was insane. And it was one of those things that I just could not believe I was there at the time and that I had the opportunity to have a hand in the production of this year's version of this tournament. And he continued to invite us back until we kind of got on our own, and then we were able to still be here, and now here we are all these years later.
Yeah.
So Rock Hill is one of those ones,
Okay.
or Winthrop is one of those ones that was just like, I couldn't believe I was there, and I had the opportunity to do it, and we've been able to witness some incredible victories ever since then.
Awesome
And I
moments,
think
for sure.
my all-time favorite, just being on the grounds and unbelievable, like that this is a real place, is Konopiste. In the Czech Republic. When I first went there, I just couldn't believe that it was like there's a castle on the ground and there's a bear that lives down in the moat.
Guarding the castle, yeah.
And I saw a wild hedgehog for the first time in my life on the ground, just chilling. Like I was like, I didn't know hedgehogs. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but as an American, we see them in the pet store and whatever.
Yeah.
But this is like, there was one on the
Wild,
ground
yeah.
just chilling, like, and they have the largest pheasants you've ever seen in your life. You know, like they just run around, and so that place felt like so unreal to me, that getting the opportunity to film there and just be there and experience it all was one of those places that I was like, this is probably my all-time favorite place, just because it's such a magical feel to it. And
it
like,
does, for
yeah,
sure.
and there's just been some amazing like events there and stuff too. So I think that's my two-part answer, is that
Awesome.
like the hallowed grounds of Winthrop is just one of those places that, you know, will always have a special place, and I'm so fortunate to even be able to come back for even another opportunity to come walk the course and then Konopiste.
Awesome.
So I would recommend, if you're ever, you know, you can fly into Prague. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and then you can drive a little bit further down to go check out the Konopiste Castle Park.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's awesome.
All right, and that goes for you. Got to ask you what your favorite course is. That's always the funnest question because there's so many.
Yeah, man. So I've said this many times, and if you guys have heard it and your fans have, you know, forgive me. I always say if I had the power to control the world, and I was a magical wizard, and I said, okay, you only have one round to play, that would be De La Viega.
Yeah.
It's my home course. It's a place I grew up. It's the disc golfer that I am today is still based on those rounds I played when I was a kid.
For sure.
You know, the money rounds with the guys there
Uh-huh.
and even the tournaments and stuff. But I mean, even I had a guy ask me today, so you probably played like 10 practice rounds a day. I go, no, we played one a day for $5 a man. I never threw practice shots. We just played over and over and over again. So if that was the case, it would be De La. If I had one course to play for the rest of my life, it would have to be Milo MacGyver.
Yeah. I can
Milo
agree with that.
MacGyver is, at some point, I looked around and I said, I cannot believe this used to be a ball golf course on a military installation that the colonel wanted or something. And now we're playing disc golf, and these trees are gigantic, and the holes are awesome. And if I had one course to play, if you just said I can only play one forever, it would be Milo.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
To add to that, and it's more recency biased because it just happened, Maple Hill. There is something about Maple Hill, the history of that place. 21 years ago is when they started to build it, and all these years later, the shots are so iconic, and just the history there, and the job that Steve, the whole family, and all the fans out there have done to just, you know, always be respectful to the previous champions and the history that's happened. I gotta say, I just absolutely love Maple Hill.
Awesome.
Yeah, and to bring that full circle, some of the first video coverage of disc golf I ever saw were the DVDs that they used to produce.
That Steve would
Maple Hill.
produce, and he would send a camera with every card.
Yeah.
Even
And
in the early
those were
days.
some of the first times, maybe the first disc golf videos I ever saw were those DVDs that, like you said, they'd come out around Christmas. You
Yep.
have to wait 6
Yeah.
months, you know, for it to come in, because that's how it used to be. But even VHS was before that, you know. But I love that you say Maple Hill, because it just reminded me, like, we can come full circle with the media.
I love
just
it.
like Steve did so much work
in the early days.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
to get that done, so that, you know, here we are now, because they have those visions. And it's very likely they made no money on those, if not lost money.
Oh, they
to
lost.
produce a DVD and sold 100, 200, even if it was 1,000, right?
And I
like,
think
for what it
everybody who
cost.
played got one.
Yeah.
Of
Players
their
pack or
group. Of
something?
their group.
Oh, that's
he would
I-
edit
that's
down
so
just
much
the
work.
group.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because in the early days, he would send a cameraman with every single group. First group off in the day, last group off the
That's
day,
cool.
and everything in between.
I mean,
so,
and that's just,
a lot
that's
of-
just, I mean, we can't even do that today.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
think
not
that
possible.
Steve was able to like make that happen, and how meaningful it was for those players to say like, I might be DFL, but I have my round on video. Right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like
That's-
how cool that was, you
It
know,
was
and
cool.
I love that. Like Steve's vision, you know, we could go on about that, but
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we're here today, like
Partly
Big
because
part
of
of
him.
it.
partly
yeah.
because of, especially the Pro Tour, of course.
I agree,
Right.
100%.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. Ricky's Roundtable on a square table, you know. But yeah, no, it's been fun sharing moments, disc golf and media side, player side, and how it comes together. So thank you guys so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Ricky.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
bud.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the next episode of Ricky's Roundtable. Thanks for tuning in.